Uh, Coach, you know, uh, when you look at, obviously, we just talked about the times. If you had some advice that you could offer to all the families and making this, in this interview, and we put it up and put on social media, what is the best advice would you have for a high school player today that is not a top 200 player, but is a good player that's looking to go to college? What would be the best advice you would have for that kid that's going into his senior year this upcoming year?
It's the same thing I tell my kids right now today. Stop worrying about. One of my better players. He was so caught up in playing in the circuit. He wanted to play in the circuit. Want to play in the circuit. Well, he got on a team in another state to go play in the circuit. I go watch him play. Played 3 minutes. This is a kid who starts for me and plays, majority of the game. He played 3 minutes. I said, so you're so happy for playing 3 minutes on the circuit just to get a bag, a pair of shoes, and a travel suit? I mean, that's what it's all about. I told all my kids, go to college elite camps, okay? Don't worry about going to these so-called made hoops and, the days of five-star basketball and hoop group and all that. Those camps are done with. Those were teaching camps. There's no teaching camps now. It's all about playing, hooping, going 5-on-5 up and down the court. And if you're a point guard, you're in heaven because you got the ball in your hands 99% of the time and you're going to shoot it anyway. So go to pick a couple of schools that you think you could play at. Like the kid I was just telling you about, Charles Barnes is 6'7". Cleveland State had an elite camp, a one-day elite camp, and he drove down with his father. And, I called the coach before ahead of time, and I said to the coach, I said, D-Rob, listen, I got this kid coming down. You should really look at him. He called me back up. He said, I offered him. I don't offer a lot of players, he said, but I love him. I offered him. So if you go to these elite camps, at least you're playing in front of the college coaches that are there. And then you might get that opportunity to get a shot at that school. If you go to these all-American camps or whatever, nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows what you're doing. Nobody even knows your name. And the coaches ain't even watching. They don't even go anymore.
But you know what? You said something that was so profound, and I think that obviously that's great. The young man got an offer from Cleveland State. But my question is, do you think he would have gotten that if you wouldn't have called ahead of time to let the coach know that he was coming? Relationships with colleges and stuff like that. In some of these schools, it's about building relationships. And let's be honest, because of the transfer portal and all this other stuff, they don't have those relationships. But how much of that do you think really helped? And obviously, his performance really was what sealed the deal.
Yeah, his performance, and you could tell he's a good player. But putting in your 2 cents beforehand is definitely going to help. And that's why I tell my kids all the time: if you're going somewhere, let me know, and I'll call ahead and let them know to, at least keep an eye out for you. I think I've earned that respect. I can't stand the coaches that call me up and, hey, I heard this kid is good. We'd like to recruit him. And the next question is, who else is recruiting him? What my answer is? Kentucky, Duke, UCLA. I mean, don't ask just a moronic question. Who else is recruiting him? Who cares? I mean, seriously, who cares? I was a college coach for 8 years. I couldn't tell if a player's a good player from watching film. If I didn't see the player myself with my own eyes, I wouldn't recruit him. So that's the next thing they ask. Well, you got any film? Yeah, I got tons of film, but what is that going to do? You're gonna take the film over my word? A guy who put over 200 players on college scholarship, Division I, Division II, Division III, JUCO. But you're gonna want to watch film? Get your ass out and come to the gym and watch him practice. You're going to take the word over film of a guy who's with a kid every day. Now, look at my record, too. I don't have many kids who've transferred from colleges. They've all gone to colleges. Only a handful have made transfers, and they did it for the right reason, and it worked out. Okay, but most of the kids go to school and have a great 4-year career, and beyond. With education and getting jobs from the relationships that they make. You got to trust somebody. I mean, it's crazy. But they'll listen to these recruiting gurus who can't bounce the ball, never took a shot in their life. I mean, where is he ranked? I remember a college coach telling me, "Oh, I'm not going to recruit Victor Law because he's not in the top 20 in Chicago." Well, guess what? That guy's not coaching no more.
I remember, and I don't know if you want to share this story about this coach, who's probably going to be, if he's not already, a Hall of Famer, was talking about, again, he wanted to recruit Julius Hodge, and he was saying all these great things, and you really just kept it simple. It was like, do you want to offer him? And he'd say, yeah, and you just walked away from the coach. And why was it, how did you, and I think you really helped me out, especially going through the recruiting process and talking to coaches. How were you able to not get caught up with the hype and the hoopla and really just make sure, obviously, you were out there and what was best for the athlete, the student athlete, and really not trying to sugarcoat things? How did you ever not get caught up in all that hoopla and stuff like that and really just kept it simple? If you're going to offer the young man, if not, we're moving.
Well, everybody has different paths, and all those guys are coaches, and I'm a coach too. I mean, there's only a amount of certain X's and O's. I mean, if you don't have, let's put it bluntly, if you don't have good players, you're not going to be a good coach, right? So, and I say this sincerely, I don't think there's a difference between me or John Calipari as far as X's and O's, okay? But, other guys took different paths and got different, had different breaks and got their breaks and, went up the ladder and, did what they, had to do. Everybody has different paths. I wouldn't trade a second of my life with anybody, but, there's only so many X's and O's. So I was never in awe of any college coach. And I've met them all and been around them all, and that. And, it's a conversation. I try to make it simple. I try to make it where it's a good fit for the kid. I know there's certain kids who couldn't play for certain coaches, and I would give the pros and I would give the cons to the kid and the family and say, I don't know if that's going to work out. I had no, skin in the game of where kids went to school. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be a good fit, and you had a good opportunity. And you're able to use the ball to get yourself a college education. And, if you could do that, then it works. So, college coaches, they come and go as, quickly.
But this was a legend. I think you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and I won't call any names because at the end of the day, it's not about anything. But this is a legend, and you were like, and I was just in awe because a lot of the times they can just, you're in such an awe, but you're right. It's, look, you know the business, you're around them, and it actually shows how much they respect you even furthermore. When you look at, I'll ask you, DePaul University. I don't know. They're on their newest head coach, and I just have to, I've spoken to so many people, and I'll ask you because you coached here at DePaul University. What will it take for that school to perhaps, I won't say return back to prominence, I mean, maybe if you will, but be a consistent school that can, win games and obviously maybe make the tournament? What will it take for the school? Because I've had some people that are in Chicago that told me it's not going to happen. It's a commuter school. The NIL stuff just furthermore hurts a school like DePaul University. What do you think, and what is holding back DePaul University from being a prominent fixture in the Big East, let alone the Midwest?
Well, DePaul is an interesting place. It's very similar to St. John's, to be honest with you.
Really?
Same order. That both schools are run by the same order. Um, you had a long, long time coach in Lou Carnesecca. You had a long time coach in Ray Meyer. They both been to one Final Four. They both back in the day, got were able to keep the players home, and build good programs. Um, neither one won a national championship. The same thing with DePaul was the way St. John's was. They didn't have dorms, at first. Now St. John's does. Um, DePaul does, but, you're in a, it's kind of weird. You're in you could have a brownstone where the university owns and there's 4 kids in there, and right next door, you could have another brownstone where it's just regular people living.
Wow.
So, when we're working there and you're getting, phone calls from campus security at 12 o'clock at night, the music's too loud, and you go over there and, it's not too loud. It's just too loud because the people next door didn't want to hear it, and so it's tough. It's tough. I don't think DePaul was ready for the Big East.
Mhm.
They probably should have stayed where they were in Conference USA at the time. But again, they went there for the money. But, when we got there, it was the first year they were going in the Big East. And now we're talking about the real Big East, not the Big East today, right? We're talking about when you had Syracuse and UConn. Well, UConn's back, but Syracuse, UConn, Pitt, all the teams that Cincinnati and
Louisville.
Louisville, and you had all the Sharks and but being out in the Midwest, you kind of learned that the Big Ten is unbelievable conferences because they have campus arenas and they play on campus, and the atmosphere is out of this world. When the Big East started, all of their arenas were pro arenas, really. Not too many people had on-campus arenas, and if they did, they weren't big enough, right? Villanova had one, but that's 10,000. But they played their big games in the whatever that's called now, Wells Fargo or Spectrum at the time. St. John's, you had Carnesecca, but would that fit 10,000 people? But you played your big games in the Garden. So that feel, St. Georgetown, they played all their games in the Washington's arena. So the feel was a little different. It wasn't that college rah-rah atmosphere. So when we got there in the Big East, and, we're looking at budgets, and we're looking at our recruiting budget and our travel budget, and, I'm sitting there and saying, how you want us to travel commercial to New York City, and when every team in the Big East is flying private jets? I mean, it's how do you expect us to sell a recruit that, we're going to go commercial flights, so, right away we had to change the culture there that, if you want to be in the Big East and you want to play with the big boys, you got to, I remember getting called in the office we were in New York and we took the team to the Palms Steakhouse for dinner. Okay. For the night before. Because, I'm from New York and I the restaurants and the bill was probably like, for our team, probably like $2,500 to, and I turn in the receipt and I get called in. Well, you took a team to, a steakhouse for dinner? I said, yeah, you know what? When we were walking in, Georgetown was walking out. I mean, where do you want us to eat? McDonald's? I mean, they just weren't ready for it. And realize this: the Big East, you're going to all the big cities, right? So everything is more expensive. You're flying to New York, New York hotels, the breakfast buffet in New York hotels, like $75 a head for scrambled eggs, bacon, and and I'm talking before, and then you talk about now. I couldn't imagine what it is now. It's probably $125 a person for breakfast in a hotel. But they just weren't ready for it, and they could have won this year when they were searching for a coach. I made it very clear to a couple of the boosters who they should hire. There was one guy out there who could have fixed that program and got them winning right away. And they all agreed with me, but they couldn't get it communicated the right way to the AD.
Who was
One
that?
guy out there. One guy.
Who was that?
Bob Huggins.
Yeah.
He was the guy. He was the guy who could have took that university and won this year immediately.
Really?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah, because he could stand toe to toe with every coach in the Big East. You know, you got, you know, I love Chris Holtman. He's a really good guy, but he had all the resources in the world to win at Ohio State. So now you go to DePaul with no resources. You know, how are you going to win that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, Pat Kennedy had some success there, and obviously it came out later. He had to play by a different set of rules. But I look at a school, and I'll ask you this, you know, when you look at a school like Providence, right? Providence is very small. And, you know, for whatever it is, you know, somehow this small institution, like if you visit their school, it's a typical Division III school setup where, I mean, I think it's almost like under 15,000 people on campus. I mean, it's a very, very small school, but yet, you know, obviously deep pockets to be a Big East school. What do you think has been their success to be able to, and I mean, granted, on-campus housing means a lot, Coach, but Providence is a very small institution. And, you know, they've garnered some great head coaches, and they've always just been a very, very reputable program that obviously, you know, Kim English is there now. He's been able to have some success there. But what has been the key to their success from your standpoint?
Well, it's a get away from the city. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a getaway from, you know, the kids in the city who could go away and have a little college life than, you know, versus being on, you know, well, St. John's is more of a campus these days now than what it used to be. But, you know, and that's the problem with DePaul. It's not really a campus. It's spread out through an exclusive area called Lincoln Park, where every brownstone, you know, is over $1 million. You know, so, you know, it's tough for kids to, you know, you know, I don't know. I had a player who just went there, transferred there, and then transferred out. You know, it's tough. It's just tough on a young man today, and you know, in that kind of situation. You know, that sometimes it's better just to go away and get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, and you know. You would say the struggle is keeping the local kids home, right?
Yeah.
In all those places. You know, I mean, how did Ray Meyer do it? And how did, you know, Lou Cornacecca keep them home? You know, back then in the day, it was a little different. St. John's didn't have dorms, so you were able to pay the kids, you know, some money, and that was like gold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, you know, they were supposed to pay, you know, the rent and all that with that money, but they also got free apartments on top of it. You know, that was the plus that they had to keep the kids, so they were able to, you know, live in these apartments and still get the money to pay, you know, the rent. So that was, I guess, a little bit of an attraction for them. Back in the day, but they were able, you know, now for a school like that, the formula, you know, I don't know what the formula is. I would have said the formula is to get a couple of kids who were from the city who did that experience, went away, didn't like it, and want to transfer, come back home.
Well, that's what's happening now, and then it's NIL. I mean, you know, if you can get a kid and, you know, it's to the highest bidder, I mean, you know, it's just a wild, wild west. And I mean, it doesn't look like you said earlier, it doesn't look like it's getting any better. A couple more questions before I let you get on that, and I always appreciate the time. When you look at the AAU scene, and I've often wondered, you know, and granted, I've asked you in the past, I thought it was such a genius move that I'm surprised that other high school coaches haven't done this, where, yes, you had all these different AAU programs, but you didn't have, I think, Frederick Douglass and Mangum Coach Mangum, I can't remember his first name.
Pat
Pat
Mangum.
Mangum was the
Yeah.
only other high school coach that I knew that said, I'm going to keep my kids together and we're going to play together in the summer. Even if you're not coaching them, you're going to be on this program. Now, Jimmy Salmon did something like that, but Jimmy was later on a high school coach, if I'm not mistaken. But for the New York standpoint, I've often wondered, especially now where obviously look, you don't have the big influx of the sneaker money is not as prevalent as it once was. Why do you think a lot of the high school coaches don't just organize their own AAU program and just basically delegate the coaching responsibilities to the assistant coaches? And now you keep your kids together and allow them to be able to compete in certain things and really oversee their growth and development.
The circuit. They all want to play in the circuit. And again, I've seen some coaches out here try to do it. Michael Irvin with Kenwood tried to do it, be the high school coach and, be an AU coach. And there's one thing I learned when I did it, because when I first started it, I coached it my first year. You can't do both. You can't be both.
Right. Nice.
I was fortunate enough to find very good guys that I trusted, and Artie, yourself, Sarge, Big D, and on and on and on, where you had good people. And, I just went along for the ride. I was the general manager, and I enjoyed booking the flights and the hotels and, eating and sitting there watching the games. But these guys now are trying to, and it's also a problem with high schools that principals and ADs are hiring AU coaches to coach high school programs. It doesn't work. You're either a high school coach or you're going to be an AU coach. You can't be both. They're trying to be both. It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on the kids. The kids need new voices. You can't just be the same voice in the kids' ear all year round. And I've seen programs, hurt themselves. Just like the Illinois Fire was one of the best AU programs in the country. Their program is not what it used to be anymore. Why? Because Michael is now coaching at Kenwood. Okay, he has Kenwood's high school program, and Mac Irvin Fire, and they both have, lessened in both areas, on the high school level and in the AU level. Same thing with Mean Streets. Ty Street wanted to be a high school coach. Now he's a high school coach. Okay, well, Mean Streets is not Mean Streets anymore, and where he's coaching, they're not, what they should be at either. So pick one. Be a high school coach. Be a high school coach. You want to be an AU coach? Be an AU coach. I just don't think it worked. I lucked out because I saw it and I said, I can't do this and I don't want to do it. When I was able to get all you guys to do it, it just worked out.
It was an amazing run, and I still say that it's one of the greatest runs in New York City in terms of AAU programs. And not to throw any shade, I think New Heights is an unbelievable program, but again, they looked at sort of that blueprint, and just being in that situation, the talent that came out of the New York Ravens, it was again right up there with all of the elite programs. And to see something like that, just very curious that it's never been replicated. Two more questions.
And the other thing that is hard to do is it's money. Back then.
But now people are paying all this money now. I mean, you don't have the shoe money. I mean, right. And that's right. And that's why I thought it would be more something prevalent now, because look, Adidas is not giving the money. Nike is not giving the money. So if you're doing these things, it kind of goes back to everybody's on sort of even footing. Why not just keep the kids? Because it's only so many kids that can play with the Wrens, the Gauchos, Riverside, some of the, the top tier programs that may have a shoe company attached to them. But
but somebody has to go out and raise the money to do it. To take a team today, Vegas was great back in the day because it was cheap.
Yeah.
You get hotel rooms for $29, $39 a night. Now, it's like you could feed a whole team. We used to go to those buffets. The the Flamingo and all those, where you feed a team for $9.99 a person. Now, you're talking $45 a person. Night hotels are, $200 a night. Rent a van is, costing you $1,000. To bring a team of 12 kids to Las Vegas now would cost you $20,000.
Yeah.
And back in the day, we could probably do it for $8,000, $9,000. Flights were, $200. Now flights $600. So somebody has to go out and fundraise. You don't have Ernie Leutches and you don't have the Lou Dalmeidas of the world, that just fund it themselves. I was fortunate enough to be able to, raise the money, back then with, some people that I knew. But like I said, it's a lot of work to do that.
Yeah, it works and it pays off. Last two questions. I know I said it. The last two right here. So you know what, Gary, this message will go out. You have parents that want to know, how do they get that kid into college, and how do they get that kid that puts in the work, that's doing all these things, and might be in a situation where, again, that high school coach really doesn't know all the ins and outs. What best advice would you have for those kids?
You got to keep grinding. You just got to work. You got to put in the time. One of my famous lines now to these kids is, you don't have a clue or understand the next level. You have no idea what it takes to be a college athlete. There's a book out there that I bought. There's a college athlete who wrote a book about how his experience was as a college athlete. And I bought about 20 copies and started giving them to my kids and telling them to read it. They just don't have a clue, and what they don't understand is, no matter where they go, whether it's Division II, Division III, junior college, Division II, Division I, those coaches, that's their livelihood. That's how they feed their family, right? So they want to win. So they're coaching, just like I said before, there's so many X's and O's. They're coaching, if it was Krzyzewski at Duke, they're coaching to win. They're doing the same exact things. They're lifting weights, they're conditioning, they're running, they're watching film, they're doing individual instructions, they have study halls. These kids have no idea about any of that stuff. None of it. For parents, I just say, get your kids to college camps, elite camps, and go there and, try to play in front of college coaches. For high school coaches today, young high school coaches, we all say, Gerald, that the kids have changed. I really don't think the kids have changed. I think the coaches have changed. I think coaches are afraid to coach kids today, because if they don't do it the way they wanted to do it, the kids leave. And the coaches rather coach the stars than coach other kids. To me, I just want to coach kids. I don't care who they are. Don't change. Don't be afraid to coach your kids. Don't be afraid to get your kids, but, I know it's, we're in a different type of world, but, you could do it without throwing chairs and, yelling and cursing kids out. You can still do it. You can still make kids, put in the time, and, but there's a different way you got to do it now.
Yeah.
But I really believe kids are the same. I really do. I think coaches have changed dramatically.
Well, in high school now, I think, and especially in New Jersey, I think they had a rule that was in place that you could transfer to another school and not sit out. I think that was kind of the something that was in place because of COVID. So it's filtering down. I think you could transfer once to a school and not have to sit out.
Well, I coached in Florida for 3 years. There's no transfer rule down there. You go to one high school and play football. Season's over, go to another high school and play basketball. And when that season's over, go to another high school and play baseball. And not sit out at all. And that's the way it's going to go. There's the no transfer rule in college. It's going to be in high school now. One of the problems is, and I heard that there's a bill on the floor from the House of Representatives to abolish high school associations across the country. That they're too, that their rules are not, obviously liberal enough, but their rules, why would you deny a kid if he goes to one school and doesn't like it and wants to go to another school? Why does he have to sit out? They're starting to question that. Why does he have to sit out? Kids do make mistakes. They go to the wrong place. Well, why can't he go somewhere else and play? I agree with that. I don't think there should be a transfer rule. Most of the rules in these state associations, hurt. Like here in Illinois, we're starting school. There's 100 fall leagues, but we're not allowed to coach. So what's the purpose of that rule? Why can't we coach our kids? I mean, so I got to get some. I can't even. Okay, say the head coach can't coach. I could live with that, but nobody that's on your staff, paid or volunteer, can coach a kid at a season. In the summertime, New York was different. New York could coach your kids all year round. I mean, there was no really different periods. In Illinois, you can only coach your kids 25 days. Why? Why can't I coach them every day? I mean, if I could get 5 kids to come in my gym and get off the streets of Chicago and come in the gym and we could work out, why can't I do that? What because all these rules were made for multiple sport kids 20 years ago. Kids who play 2 or 3 sports. Well, guess what? We blame basketball. Every sport's not like that no more. Okay, kids are not. Every sport's all year round now. Football, they have 7-on-7. Soccer, kids play all year round. Baseball, we have kids going down to Florida every weekend to go and play in tournaments during the winter. I mean, it's all sports are all year round now. So, why can't we coach our kids? Then we want to say why we don't have any control over our kids because we lose them to the AU coaches because we can't coach them because we're bound by these rules.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Last question before I let you get on out of here. You've had so many experiences, and you obviously had a taste in the college ranks. And knowing this landscape with NIL, transfer portal, would you ever want to go back and coach in college? And if so, why?
Nope, unless it was for one of my former players.
Okay.
If one of my former
so
players.
You mean to tell me if Temple University say, hey, we want you, wouldn't go there as a head coach?
No, absolutely not. Unless I could hire 3 of my former players with me.
Well, you can hire whoever.
Yeah. No, I'd rather go work with one of my former players and be the what do you call that now? The special assistant to the head coach.
Yeah.
And just guide them and help them have success. That's what that would be great. But I always said the purest form of coaching is in high school. That's where you make a difference in kids' lives. And I always thought my forte was to help kids get to the next level. But now with the rules, you can't, it's so hard. It's hard to even do that. And that's why you're seeing a lot of very good high school coaches and a lot of great college coaches getting out of the game. Why do you think Jay Wright got out of it? Why do you think Boeheim? Those guys, you want to coach kids who are making more money than your assistant coaches?
Yeah.
I mean, it's how do you do that? Maybe we should just all realize that they're all professionals now.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. But we don't say that. It's just and I don't have a solution for it. I don't know how it could be fixed. I just don't know how it's going to do it.
Maybe if it happens to crash and burn, I think that's when it looks at and say, you know what, we could start all over. And then it's getting individuals such as yourself to have tremendous input. Coach, as always, I appreciate you and love you because, again, the impact that you had on my life and just being able to be in your presence and listen and learn about the game, but also just the inner makings and the outer workings of, the recruiting process and just what you have done for so many of the young men that you coached, specifically at St. Raymond's High School, New York Ravens. The impact of your program, it was tremendous. And, forming the relationships that I have with Sarge, you know, Artie Green, the late great Big D, you know, so many guys and stuff like that. It was a blast, and it was so difficult that once it was over, it was like, you know what, nothing else could compare to it. So I always salute you. I look forward to doing this again and definitely getting you on Mad Dog and stuff, because we also got to talk about the Yankees, and hopefully you coming into town in New York, especially during the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's go Yankees. We're due.
Long overdue.
We are due, and we better look, you know, across the subway there, and the Mets are, you know, making one of these historical runs.
Yes, indeed. Gary DeCesare.
I really appreciate it, Gerald, and you're doing great things out there, and you know, love you guys too. Love you, and you know, keep grinding.
Yes, indeed.
So when I'm driving in my car at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll hear you instead of 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, you know what?
You'll be there.
Hey, listen, man, and definitely look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good one.
You do the same. Gary DeCesare. Joining me right here, Heavy in the Paint.